Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor, get ready for Gnosis. Well, I want to talk about an area that is coming up stronger and stronger and has been recently commented on in odd places, including Jimmy Dore's political show, where issues have come up of the extraterrestrials and so forth, and other people who are now coming out as everybody with any kind of a brain or consciousness understands that extraterrestrials are real. And that includes Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson. So, two people that are right wing and would think that would be less applicable in these areas, but they tend to be falling into, again, the entity problem that has been pushed by the federal government, which always makes me suspicious when people like this come out and claim they're anti government when they buy into the lines of it. Now, I covered the story of Chris Bledsoe pretty thoroughly, and I've gathered more information on him and his case. And this is a very difficult situation. And as usual, we have to understand that, and there probably are more, or they could be called subcategories of the three main unexplainable or undocumented to a degree. Not really. You got to remember the research in these things go back 150 years now. So the only research that isn't there is by those who want to discredit it. The dumb bunkers don't want to believe anybody or anything. So it's kind of silly. But we have to understand that extraterrestrials, these are beings that come, physical beings that get here using some sort of technology or crafts. From other planets. And we have to understand that we have to define the three types. Okay? Are real. We do have all sorts of film of physical beings. We have their bodies. We have their ships. We have everything else. So the point is, since we have no truth from anybody, you can't verify this. And anything the government tells you, whether it's good or bad, cannot be trusted, including individuals who may be dupes. They may be disinformation agents. They may be just plain retards that don't get it. So it's hard to believe anything. But to think that the huge universe that is out there, and we've already found a whole bunch of planets that have been told to us by NASA, the Nazi Aerospace Association, that there, and from the Hubble telescope, are very possible habitable planets that have atmospheres similar to the Earth, large oceans and other things. So planet Earth, while it is a rarity, we're talking about just statistical numbers of the trillions and trillions and trillions of planets out there. There has to be planets similar to planet Earth, and most of them are much older. So if these societies have survived, they most likely have chewed up their planet and have ways that they're off of it and maybe floating around in the atmosphere. A lot of people, meaning have ships, maybe landed here, maybe have integrated in society. There's certainly lots of stories of this. Species that look identical to us. And it may be one of the reasons why we have such a strange world as well. Is your next door neighbor human or an Earth being? Or are they from planet Zerg? We don't know. And don't think that's humorous, because it could be very true. Maybe they're weird because they're not even Earth beings. Who knows? Nothing can be ruled out in this day and age. What's very interesting is the latest information coming out from the Hubble telescope is that they found two huge new galaxies. Did you hear me? Not planets, galaxies. We live in the Milky Way galaxy. They found two huge new galaxies that they believe are much older than the Milky Way again. That just opens up the possibilities of life forms similar to ours even further. And if we want to take all the suppressed science, the anti-gravity that we have, the Tesla technologies that were ignored, and we can find a society who didn't do all that, well, they would be able to come here one way or another. They would figure out how to jump the space-time distance problem. Because we're talking about literally thousands of light years away, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions. That's a little more than an average lifespan. But the bottom line is that most likely they wouldn't be sending humans, as most Greys are androids to begin with, that come here to do the work and then go back. Why would you risk yourself to do that? You send a machine. Now, we send crappy primitive machines because that's where we're at right now. A advanced society would send an android, as was showed in Star Trek. What was it, the Next Generation or whatever they call it, where they had an android who was very human-like. And of course, this makes sense in the bigger picture as well. So we have to look at things in a practical reality. There are so many planets out there, so many life forms that could have grown up out there, and we have literally thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of reports, images, and pictures. So the whole idea is thinking that in some way that physical entities coming here is ridiculous in itself. That is the most probable explanation for anything, that there are actually entities, not something from a indefinitive dimensional world, which is really so hard to comprehend it isn't even funny. But as a person who has studied this, as my original field of study was, branching out into the what would be considered manifesting sciences and the advanced sciences, is I started out in the occult sciences, which use these etheric, dimensional, spirit-type energies as all part of the way of manifesting. And this is something that's been done for many, many years, thousands and thousands of years, things called ritual magic, done by great advanced societies like the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Aztecs, all the people that had very, very advanced societies, all dealt with dimensional entities, otherwise known as spirits, that they would call upon to assist them in life. So this is nothing new and goes back tens of thousands of years, as magic was really the science of their time. So it's not shocking to me, it's not unusual, and I quite understand this at a much higher level than anyone else does, because they're stuck in scientific idiocies and laugh at things that are outside of their realm of knowledge, giving you one excuse after the other. Just nonsense. So to think that there isn't this, and we have proof of, quote, spirits as well. We have proof of would be the actual spirit entities, which we would call ghosts. Now, ghosts have been filmed. People have identified ghosts. They look like humans, people who have lived before. There are places that have ghost activities. These are remaining spirits of the actual physical entity or their energetic informational field of that person, which is still left behind. And we're not sure how much of it is. Are they stuck here? Or is it the fact that they just refuse to leave and they left some of their essence here that then produces itself in ways where you can film them, you can feel them, they can knock over things. And of course, the poltergeist or noisy spirit syndrome is certainly something that has been well documented, as has been ghosts and so many other things. So this is a type of spirit entity that is, again, proven. Now, the only people that don't get this are the lying, ignoramus people in the scientific field who apparently understand that since science has failed and failed horribly, it's been noted by many people, including Chris Bledsoe and his son, Ryan, I believe is his first name, that all of your agencies investigating this, which seems to be everybody, are all heavily based in metaphysics. So, because this is what's been done for thousands of years to connect to things that you can't. Certainly, there are no religions that help you with that. Religions are dogma of beliefs, and they don't really assist you in doing anything but giving money to some bozo to connect you to God. This is, of course, absurd. So, with all that, we have to fully understand what is going on there. We have to understand the fact that these are not an unknown phenomenon. Apparently, this is something that the intelligence communities in general. And what's really interesting is that, per the Chris Bledsoe case, which has been going on now for almost 20 years, and they have been contacted by almost every single governmental law enforcement and military organization out there that's been formed, which there are many, many of them. There doesn't seem to be, per their talk, that there is one kind of group, which shows you how stupid the government is. They don't have one particular, let's call him Agent Moldar, who can go out and investigate these things. They don't even have a team of people to do this as speculative. Apparently, everybody's involved with it, and particularly the idiots at NASA who have done nothing and have lied to us for many, many years. But these Chris Bledsoe and his family have claimed that they've been contacted by everybody. This means CIA, FBI, Drug Enforcement Agency. Every single branch of the U.S. military. So none of them are working together. They all come and talk to them about this because they want to figure out for themselves. Typical, horribly organized government. Now, they haven't claimed to be contacted by scientists, except for the NASA people who have used and abused the Bledsoes by getting information and technologies that they patent and make money off of it. And of course, the Bledsoes were never reimbursed for anything. They didn't help them. They don't give them any kind of help or money or anything else. How typical government. But their pockets are full. So you can better believe that all these investigators who make a fortune, and many of them who are involved in criminal activities to make more money, have plenty of money. They won't do anything to help these people, including giving them money for regression therapy, hypnotic regression therapy, so they could remember their contacts. They also seem to be programming the Bledsoes by giving them information, telling them to stay away from others so that their information becomes the word of God. As Ryan Bledsoe has said, that he considers when NASA talks to him that these are the people that have the facts. What? Including telling them that there are ancient, large buildings and structures on the dark side of the moon, actual structures that are built there. So I guess those were built by dimensional creeper. Did they use dimensional hammers? Is that dimensional cement that's still been there now thousands of years later? So these are physical buildings, and you build physical buildings because you're a physical person. So it's contradictory to say that these are just dimensional entities, and that these are, and of course the other problem we have in this whole area. So we have the real physical extraterrestrials that come in physical crafts from physical planets that are not ours. We have spirits, ghosts, spirits, other things. This becomes very gray and hazy of how this crosses into dimensionals, because basically ghosts are in other dimensions. And dimensions can be literally limitless, infinity. Now think of that word infinity. Oh, that's a lot. It's not a lot. It's never ending. It's more than a lot. And people don't think about that. So infinity... it's very hard to judge that. So is there the dimension for ghosts and spirits that are from this plane? And probably true. They probably vibrated a particular vibration for that. People have been able to communicate with the dead consistently and verifiably. They're probably in another dimension. Now, a lot of times in ritual magical practices or magic in general, entities will show up. These are spirits. Spirits of the trees, spirits of the grass, God forms, etc. This is fairly common, but not very common. So to produce spirits that physically show themselves is pretty rare. To feel their energies, to feel hot, to feel cold, to see phenomenon happen in front of you is very, very common. So, but showing physically takes a huge amount of energy, and a lot of spirits just won't do it because they're not going to drain themselves and try and do that. So, but all the recent phenomenon of ghost hunting and other things, well, 99% of it is complete Hollywood garbage. There certainly is some very fascinating aspects of it. So, we do have to understand that. And there's some new interesting tools out of ghost hunting that has come up with the fact that does this this seems to be contacting. There's been a lot of research done recently in contacting the dead that has pretty much verified it, and they are very useful, particularly for apparently medical analyzing. So, diagnostic using past spirits of relatives. They don't apparently understand your personal needs of money and other things. They work more on a spiritual level or a well-being level, and their information that they supplied has been pretty shockingly accurate. Again, let's throw that all in the toilet because we have bogus physicists that don't want to deal with it. And now they're so lying scum, these physicists, people like Sean Carroll, who now want to say that they're philosophers. And he moved to a university which would allow him to do that, while Caltech wouldn't. Well, I guess we can give Caltech some credit that they don't venture into things that they are too ignorant to know about. So, but apparently it's okay in Baltimore, wherever this guy is at. So figures. But the whole idea is that this is the kind of problems that we run into. So leaving this kind of advanced science to military monkeys or these goofball physics people who have all this bogus information, have never really achieved anything, is going to be the downfall of this society. Not to mention the kind of massive fraud in the scientific community, which I will be doing another video on here soon. The amount of fraud in science is shocking. And we're not talking about from some junior college. We're talking about from Harvard, Yale, MIT, etc., who are falsifying records to get their name into the money pot so they can draw money by making up results that they never get because they're too stupid to do proper testing. So we get involved in all that, which we have to very, very fully understand the reality of what's going on there. So scientific fraud is science. There isn't any science without fraud because they don't discover anything. It's all the same stuff, which goes back 500 years to Newton. I love his cookies. So the whole idea is that we need to understand that. We need to understand the bigger picture of it all. So we have these three types. Extraterrestrials come from other planets, physical beings or their physical products such as androids and physical ships. Whether these ships travel on light beams or whatever to get here, and whether they're figuring out how to use wormholes and other things, we have these crafts. We have many sightings of it. Many people are communicating with them. It becomes a big gray area of whether these are beings because they function interdimensionally, meaning they can materialize and dematerialize. Well, we can do that as well. Remote viewers, they call this transposing. Is that what they call it? Biolocation. It's biolocation where you concentrate on other locations so much that you put your consciousness there. Then you keep building your consciousness until you physically transport there. This has been going and been done by humans for thousands of years, which is a mental teleportation, astral projection, etc. And there's ways to take this to a very high level where you physically can move there. Again, this has been documented in ancient texts. So the whole idea is that this is where things get to be a little confusing, and the fact that when you would think you would be able to dematerialize yourself and rematerialize like the transporter in Star Trek if you're an advanced organization, because that's the way to get places. You don't take, just like using scalar electronics, you don't take something physical and take that and move it some other place. You have to put it into informational energetic forms and then transfer the energy over to that other place to get a particular result or change that particular person. Whether that's something you're sending them a particular type of energy. So it's like to like. So you would, so we're doing that already in a very primitive way, and teleportation has been achieved already using light beams. So we're told. So you're taking something that is physical, making it non-physical, and then making it physical again. So would that be called an interdimensional being? Well, no, it wouldn't. So you're taking it, starting out with the physical. So what you do in between, and it ends with the physical ultimately. So we need to understand that, and this is where things get confusing. So when we look at the different cases, then we have ghosts. Well, ghosts can connect with the physical world. They can hit you, slap you, push you. There are many cases of this, including Malachi Martin, the famous exorcist who was pushed down the stairs by a demonic entity and hurt himself seriously, if you want to understand. Oh, thanks for the protection, Jesus. So the whole idea is that he was pushed down the stairs and badly hurt. So here we go as a spirit, a ghost, a demonic entity that can physically produce itself for certain periods of time to interact with other physical. So that is what? Well, I consider that a spirit. So we have to understand that. Now, what are interdimensional? Well, this is another very fascinating area of discussion. Are ghosts interdimensional? Well, I wouldn't really label them as that. We have to draw some lines here and clarify what it is, which they've never done, just like it hasn't been clarified what the types of UFOs are. Military, Earth-based, extraterrestrial, etc., spirit realms. All of these things need to be defined, but they won't do it. And apparently, there isn't anybody in government that has the job of doing that. This was stated by the goofball NASA scientist who has no business investigating extraterrestrials. What does he know about anything? But worms his way in, plays these little games he's been trained in Texas to do by the intelligence agencies to come and act like a goofball and play games so that he can worm his way into the family, as he did with the Bloodsoes, including going to their children's graduations, their games they went to, etc. All the things you do, and just shows you how planned and conniving these people are, under the guise not of the CIA but of NASA. Oh, they're such nice people, NASA. They're real asses from NASA. So the whole idea is they come in and play these games with you, rape and rob you, get all the information they can, take anything you personally have that you found that is your property, and then exploit it for their own uses. Thank you, government. You're so predictable. And let's bring in the military murderers like General Alexander, who calls himself a hard-ass mercenary. I've never heard a soldier call themselves a mercenary. Now, that's in his personal statements, if it has been quoted correctly in the books, which are in parentheses, meaning they said it. He says that he's a hard-ass mercenary. Now, mercenary is someone who kills for anybody, anywhere for money. That's the lowest type of reality as a warrior you can be. Now, I've never heard a real soldier call themselves a mercenary because they understand that mercenaries are just murderers. As a soldier fighting for a system even, or a belief system, or for God and country, is quite different than a mercenary who kills anybody just for the buck. So this is a guy that I frankly detest to the highest level. He also studies death. He's fascinated by death. Of course, if you're a soldier, that's your job, to kill people. The problem is that that's not metaphysically based. So death is not a metaphysic subject matter. In the bigger picture, it isn't. Maybe in the smaller picture, it isn't. And maybe in the bigger picture, of course, death is part of the whole process of metaphysics. We really don't understand what death means, etc., etc. I won't bore you with further. So the bottom line is we have to really understand that. We have to understand the fact that what all of this means in the bigger picture. So this guy comes in who has no, but apparently every single agency, from the military to all the other ones, including the Drug Enforcement Agency, which you think all have come and talked to the Bloodsoes, thinking that this may be some sort of security risk. And the military-industrial complex, all these goofball federal agents that don't do their jobs, don't have a central place to investigate something as strange and odd as this, yet they seem to be very interested in it and have tracked the particular phenomenon that the Bloodsoes have experienced. These basically toxic, dangerous balls of light, balls of fire that are radioactive, that will kill you if you get too close to them. And the fact is these entities don't want to have anything to do with governmental people, which of course shows their intelligence. They don't want to be manipulated, destroyed, studied, or anything else. They don't want to be put in a bottle in a cage to be looked at by a very inferior race of people and have them tell them what to do. I certainly understand that. But they are very interested in this and apparently have absolutely no control over these entities that the Bloodsoes have had contact. These balls of light, which are very common. All of these orbs that you see are very common. I've seen many different orbs, and so have a lot of other people. As I've mentioned in other videos, there's a place where orbs come by almost every night. And if you stand on the overpass of this the 10 freeway, in on date palm in the Palm Desert area, you'll see giant green orbs come over that freeway almost every night from around 11:30, 11 to 12 o'clock. And you'll see they're green glowing orbs. So what does that mean? So orbs are quite common. Now, the kind of orbs that Bledsoe has seen. Now, these are, again, we can classify without going into further discussion. These are dimensional entities, which again can be endless because there's endless. There's no such thing as a finite dimension, as far as I understand. They can go. They're infinite. So, um, so this is what you're dealing with. What are they? Now, these entities, and of course the Bledsoes, have got no information from them whatsoever. They know nothing about them. They gave him the usual story. We're here to help you with no money, no information, no good photographs, no information, no any kind of relics or artifacts that we give you. Yeah, we want you to tell us about it, tell the world about us with no help and no way to do it. Apparently, they're too stupid to help these people win the lottery, or maybe dump a pile of a couple of bricks of gold on the lawn there so that the Bledsoes can eat next week because they don't have any money and they can't pay for virtually anything. They're traumatized, they're sick, they're dying. Yet these great entities that they've contacted who want to help the world, which don't call themselves anything, they don't even have any names. Chris Bledsoe calls the main contact that showed them to him in a typical manipulative way as a female figure, a glowing female figure, blonde hair, the usual crap to be some sort of angelic, which is dangerous to begin with, as these are toxic entities that use that form that people think are special, as what happens with the so-called blondes and so forth of the extraterrestrial community in the 40s who were working with the Nazis. So these are negative and destructive entities. All that he knows about them, without any knowing where they're coming from, any information whatsoever, is the name is the Lady. As I said, it reminds me of Jerry Lewis. Lighting. So here we go again with a bunch of trashy garbage. And of course, these thoughts and so forth have been planted in the Bledsoes' consciousness by these intelligence agencies trying to warn people away from physical entities. And the reason they're doing that, to sum it up, but I have longer, if you want to listen to those longer lectures on that, is so that they don't have to prove anything physical. So, plain and simple, if you have anti-gravity crafts, if you have all this technology, why are we not using it and have not used it for almost 100 years now? So the government looks bad. So they don't want to do that. And they don't want to give their power over to others. There's oil companies, there's the corporations that run the world. And if there is free energy and there's free healing, they're going to lose trillions and trillions of dollars. And the government works for them. That's just the short nutshell of it all. So they're going to try and BS you that everything's an entity when there are physical realities. And I am even under the conclusion that these actual light balls, these orbs that this guy likes to call them, may be government created and government controlled, plain and simple. So nothing of it adds up, and it fits into the story they want to do, which is now going to be brought to a major motion picture to convince people there are no physical extraterrestrials, which is the height of absurdity. Why would it be absurd with all the planets out there that somebody couldn't physically get here? I mean, it's just absurd. And certainly the human race, which is very genius and evil at the same time, has been able to figure this out. Yet nobody else is going to figure it. Societies that may be literally millions of years older than ours have not figured out how to do this stuff. Well, it's mind-boggling. And to think that this is a unique planet unto itself is absurd as well. It is very unique in, again, the bigger picture. There are trillions of planets, and there may be only life on several thousand. But still life, and that life must be, if it's millions of years older than ours, it must be very advanced as well if it survives. So we can't be the only planet like this that has survived. So there's all sorts of things and all sorts of reports of different people who have actually told the different planets they've come from, whether it's the Pleiades or Venus or other things that people have claimed they've come from. We just don't know. And we don't even have anything. What I find very fascinating is the fact that there doesn't seem to be a division within the security agencies that is assigned to investigate this, other than this NASA guy who's obviously been very well trained con artist to go in and manipulate people, showing up unannounced, surprising people, knowing, of course, they're home because they're under watch by the local and federals who are watching and have their phones tapped and everything else. So they knew they were home. They're going to go there and then they're going to make sure that the father was gone, and they're going to talk to mommy, because you always can influence the women easier. They're more threatened by somebody showing up and more impressed by the flashing of a badge, or young teenagers who want to see the NASA emblem or some other thing. And of course, Chris Bledsoe himself, the main victim of all this, can't wait to get the little CIA pins and hats, which he wears proudly. Again, it's called manipulation. So that's the kind of people they want, and he's a perfect sucker for that. And of course, you got to remember that he's a person who's living in a delusion, being a Pentecostal Christian, speaking in tongues, drinking lemonade in the middle of a freeway, whatever these people do, all that stuff. So he's a perfect person to try and easily convince, being a person of superstitious nature. So they move all the same group of goofballs in there, all the same people. And then, of course, it's the first time I've seen NASA so prominently involved in these things, is the fact that they bring them in. So that, I think, is so very fascinating that the government apparently doesn't have anybody that investigates this. There are no Agent Moldars out there, apparently. It's everybody hears about this, because they wouldn't have heard about this unless all the intelligence agencies communicated with each other and told them about this phenomena. So there's a great, obviously, intercommunication that there is with, quote, unlaw enforcement, as I call them, agencies around the world, which I'm very aware of in general. They always contact each other, and they know what's going on anytime they want to with individuals that they have targeted. So this is something I think few people understand. So if anybody is not found somewhere, that's because they're not hiding. Nobody is identifying them. So it's as simple as that. They know everything that goes on, which is quite amusing. So it's interesting that that is something that doesn't appear to be out there. It's also interesting that NASA, who has been hiding stuff, and they have a whole group of people that look at the photographs that NASA takes, and then they go in there and they change them and they modify them so that they are not clear, like they do with the Mars photos, which are obviously seem to be rubble from ancient civilization, buildings, etc. All these lines don't make any sense that they look like building material. And this isn't just your mind playing games with you when you have one after the other, but you're talking about things that are literally probably millions of years old when there was a civilization on Mars, or at least hundreds of thousands. So all of this, there doesn't seem to. So NASA is certainly and not a good organization. It never has been. It never will. They can't even get rockets up in space anymore. We have to depend on the Russians to get to the space station, something they don't talk about now since Russia is no longer the nice guy. Well, how do you think people get up to that station? Or maybe we should leave that station. If the Russians stop their rockets going up there, the people up there will die. So think about that for a minute. So I have no use for NASA, what they've ever done, and the over-glorification of space and space travel with their Tinker Toys up there when we have much greater advanced technologies is an insult to everyone, including the American taxpayers who pay for everything. And these manipulative scumbuckets that are in NASA that are playing with Chris Bledsoe, etc., bleeding them dry of all their information, filling their head with a bunch of garbage, and taking anything of value from them for their own personal benefit is appalling. But hey, welcome to U.S. government. So it's the same old people, and we get the same old characters to a degree that tend to show up. I don't know why we have ex-retired general who retired in 1988, who's still involved with all this stuff. Well, obviously he's not very retired. So the whole idea is they're all working together, and this is another guy that is quote, retired, who's basically working for the CIA and the military industrial complex as much as he ever did. So, and can, of course, never be trusted whatsoever. And they are telling the Bloodstones what things mean instead of the Bloodstones trying to explain the phenomenon that's going on. So this is a horrific case, and it's come out in a movie, and I expect this to cause massive problems. Then we have, of course, the donkey-headed, foul-smelling Christians who want to think that everything are demons and that all extraterrestrials are demonic figures that come there. This couldn't be further from the truth. We also have to understand that why should an advanced race respect us whatsoever? Look what we do to animals in general, murdering them by the thousands and thousands, millions every year for food, or in general, how we track them and put things on them. Why should they look at us as anything else? We certainly haven't done anything as a race that deserves any respect. We destroy our planet and we kill each other. That's what we're good at. Should they treat us nice? Well, the point is that we have a right to do what we want with our planet and our society, and that's how I always look at it, regardless if that's negative. But the bottom line is that these entities, these dimensional entities, are far from good. They're not doing anything. They're not really helping. There's some, quote, healing going on, but, there's a mass healing. Why don't 1,000 people show up that are sick and they heal them all? That don't happen. So, or why aren't there tech given? Why isn't he given advanced technologies, Bledsoe? Why aren't they giving him something to prove more of? As he said, how about a nice little block of gold or some other things? Now, apparently, these orbs kind of pooed out some sort of a very unusual metal. And of course, Bledsoe was so stupid to give it to a NASA boy who made a fortune off of it. So the whole idea, without him getting a penny, as the story goes from Bledsoe himself, which is probably true. As I said, you remember, government works for government. They don't work for you. We just pay their bill. So the whole idea is that's the reality that goes on out there. So all of this is very, very suspicious and something that we have to understand. But those are the three types. To think that there isn't physical extraterrestrials is just asinine. To think that that there can only be dimensional or spirits and there's nothing physical is asinine. The point is the universe and life in general is relatively complicated. So there are many types of energy fields for many different things. And of course, there are physical, there are non-physical, and then there are dimensional. Is that too much for you to wrap your head around? Physicists that get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, that write all these books that really just have diarrhea mouth, that nothing that comes from it is only the stink of their own dirty terms. Really, that's what it comes down to. So I hope everybody is now clarified and understands the truth as I brought you Gnosis yet again. Until next time.